What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. MARC RYAN and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Podcasts available on Apple Podcast, Google Play. Go to Offsides with MARC RYAN. You'll find some great on-demand content right there. Here's what's coming up on the show today. We have a system, but what would be the very best system? The very best system. We will tackle that with you. I will put Super Bowl contenders to the test with 6 different criteria. 6 different criteria. Heisman Trophy voter Brent Beaird joining us at 4 o'clock p.m. today. We will have a sizzle scale for you on the NFL matchups. Clemson basketball, the natives are restless yet again. We've got the top 5 at 5. We have hate mail for you today at 5:40 p.m. on the show. And we have you.
And we have Grant and Five Forks hosting a segment of the show at 4:45. Grant, I hope you're ready.
Grant and Five Forks. Grant doesn't give 5 forks, Diesel. He doesn't give 5 forks. He's ready to go. He's ready to go. Guys, let us start with this. How much is this, as the wheel turns, as the world turns, how much is going on right now on the coaching front in college football? Well, consider this. Today, I wrote on the rundown, Alabama arrogance. Why did I write that on the rundown? Here's why, Diesel. Because 2 days ago, when we got the announcement right at 5 p.m., Diesel says in my ear, Mark, you're going to want to change the number 1 on your top 5 at 5 today because whatever it is, it's going to be this instead. Nick Saban is retiring. An hour after that came out, what we were hearing from Alabama was they had asked their recruits, their kids, to give them 72 hours before they make a decision. And I remember thinking, that's awfully interesting, isn't it? I mean, that's awfully unique and interesting that they're so confident that they're going to have the guy in place in 72 hours. And so I said to myself, well, okay, we'll see how this goes. We will see how this develops. Josh Pate came out and said, guys, you're hearing about this for the first time. You're on first base, but trust me, Alabama has known about this for some time. They're already on third base. They're already in the 11th hour in the process. And so today I'm like, okay, we're coming up on 48 hours. And it's like, do they want Dabo? Do they want Mike Norvell? Do they still want Dan Lanning, Kalen DeBoer? Who is it that they want, right? And I titled the segment Alabama's Arrogance because I'm like, boy, that is awfully presumptuous to assume our job is so good, so desirable that we're going to know who the guy is and he's going to be great within 72 hours. Well, my friends, they got me. They got me because it looks for all intents and purposes as though it is going to be Kalen DeBoer. He is in talks right now for the head coaching job. This would be a bona fide grand slam for the Crimson Tide. And the depressing thing for all of us is it shows you how far away our programs are from being able to pull off something like that. Florida could have gotten Kalen DeBoer when he was at Fresno State. Oh, gosh, Diesel. I'm just realizing Florida could have hired Kalen DeBoer over Billy Napier. They've been at their schools the same amount of time. Billy Napier, 2 years. Kalen DeBoer, 2 years. You had to have the foresight to know who the right guy was. Now, admittedly, if Florida had hired Kalen DeBoer, there'd a bunch of Gator fans who would have been like, who? Who? Right? So what? Knows what he's doing. You knew in year 1 he knows what he's doing. Man, this guy's got it. Whatever it is, knows what he's doing. And unfortunately, the Floridas and the South Carolinas of the world can't get Kalen DeBoer now.
Hey, nobody knew who Jack Lingill was when Marshall hired him after the plane crash. And look what he did. He ushered them back to national prominence at the FCS level.
That's exactly right.
We got a texter in here already talking trash. Says, yeah, a dude from South Dakota coaching Alabama. LOL. Surely nothing will go wrong. Bad hire. Explain why, texter. Is it just because he's from South Dakota? Because Nick Saban's from West Virginia? What does that have to do with anything?
Oh, yeah. And how did Nick Saban do at Alabama? How did he do at LSU?
He also spent time at Michigan State. He also spent time with the Cleveland Browns. Explain why all of those things mean he's not going to be a good coach at Alabama.
Brian Kelly is so not a local in Baton Rouge, he has to say family to make you think that he's actually from there. He's nowhere close to being from there. You know, fit matters, and having a tie to a region matters, but it's not the end-all, be-all, okay? You know, Florida, South Carolina could have landed Kalen DeBoer 2 and 3 years ago. Alabama can land him right when he went to the national championship game. And Diesel, if you read the tea leaves on this, they were out there this morning. The first tea leaf that dropped, okay, 9 a.m. this morning on the nose, a sports radio station called KJR in Seattle. With this, 9 a.m., I retweeted it with a emoji, Diesel, but I knew right what it meant. Kalen DeBoer has a weekly appearance on KJR. Here's what KJR tweets 9 a.m. on the nose. Husky fans, we know you are looking forward to a visit with Coach DeBoer this morning. Please understand that Coach DeBoer and UW Athletics are continuing to work towards a future we can all be excited about. At this time, Coach will not be joining us this morning, but we will reschedule our interview soon. #Purple Rain. Boy, that is the most ass-kissing tweet I've ever. That is the most nothing to see here tweet I've ever heard of in my life. I mean, God, you're not that worried about your relationship with UW, are you? I mean, like, how about just try to be honest with people? Okay, guys, Kalen DeBoer has canceled his interview this morning. Your guess is as good as ours.
Imagine how massive that goes viral.
Your guess is as good as ours. Diesel, it went 4.1 million views with the announcement they gave.
Yeah, that would have had 20 million views if
they
had said it. Your guess is as good as ours.
Your guess is as good as ours. Like, why not? Why can't you be honest with people?
They want to make sure they can get the next coach on too.
Yeah. Please understand, Coach DeBoer and UW Athletics are continuing to work towards a future we can all be excited about. Meanwhile, guess what's going on right now as we speak? Dabo Swinney is having a meeting with his team set for 3 p.m. this afternoon. 35 minutes from where we're broadcasting in Greenville, Dabo is sitting down with his team. There was a period in time last night where Dabo was the favorite to get the job. Kalen DeBoer was number 2. Then we had all this news about Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell, what's going on with Norvell? What is happening? Well, Ross Dellinger says that Norvell did have talks with Alabama, and that as a result of that, what do you know? Here's a new contract for you, Mike Norvell. $10 million a year for you, sir. $10 million a year. We're going to commit to a $450 million stadium upgrade, and we're going to commit to a football-only facility right now. Right now.
What's the next big program who has a job opening that creates this kind of market reset? Is it Texas? Because we've seen Florida State reset the market. We saw Texas A&M reset the market. Alabama is going to reset the market. What other school has an opening that can reset the market on what coaches get paid nationally?
Great question, Diesel. Great question.
I'm not sure there is another one.
No, I think this is it. So let me ask you this. Why did Dan Lanning not want the job, but Kalen DeBoer does? Washington beat Oregon twice. Washington won the Pac-12. Washington, not Oregon, went to the college football playoff. Washington, not Oregon, went to the national championship game. Why did Dan Lanning decide to stay and Kalen DeBoer decided to go? Both have been at their schools for 2 years. What's the difference? You know what I say? The difference is Nike. The difference is that money. The difference is resources. Okay? Whereas Kalen DeBoer was going to be attempting to win with 10 cents on the dollar every single year, Dan Lanning knows that he has successfully convinced Oregon, Phil Knight, its power brokers, to invest on the level of an Alabama, of a Georgia, to where they can overcome the geographical hurdles that they face. So that when you even the monetary playing field, the only difference between Oregon and Alabama is the length of flights Dan Lanning has to take. He's on a lot of 4 and 5 hour flights. Nick Saban's on a lot of 1 hour flights. Less than that, right? 40-minute flights versus 4-hour flights. That's a big difference. It is. But the resources are there. The resources are not there at UW. And I'll tell you, Diesel, when I saw that this morning, I knew. Do you remember a day ago we said, who is our pick to be the next Alabama coach? Technically, Diesel, you still could be right. Even though Lane Kiffin was trolling all of us last night with a picture outside of the tiny Oxford airport. He took a picture. He's trolling everybody. Like he's literally. That's why
I love Lane Kiffin.
He's trolling everybody. Ooh, look at where I am. Look at where I am. It's incredible. You could still be right, Diesel. At the same time, Kalen DeBoer is in talks with Alabama right now. And boy, like, come on, guys. Come on. Can you spare us the canned, hey, I know you were looking forward to a visit with him this morning. Come on.
You got to feel for a program like that, you know, they're hoping that they are back into national prominence. Washington has been in the playoff before. They're hoping that they can get there and they stay there with the right guy and then gut it again.
Gut it again. They find a guy, Diesel, and he lasts for literally 2 years. Same time as Dan Lanning.
Yeah, they took the risk and proved that he's a good coach at this level. And then he just like, peace, I'm out.
Kalen DeBoer is negotiating a contract right now to replace Alabama's Nick Saban. Negotiating a contract. They want you, Kalen. Not only that, but there was also a word today from there was a report out that Michigan had reached out to Kalen, knowing that Alabama wants him, and asking Kalen to remain on standby because they think they're going to have an opening. Imagine this dude, Diesel. Imagine started from the bottom, now we're here. Imagine 2 years ago, who's this guy Fresno State hired? 2 years ago. Okay? To now Michigan, Alabama in a tug of war for his services. I mean, how do you do that in 2 years? You do that in 2 years, brother. When you go 14-1 plus 11-2, 25-3 over 2 years at a place like Washington, who's delivering recruiting classes in the 30s. In the 30s, their recruiting classes are ranked in the 30s. South Carolina has more talent than Washington. Gamecocks have more talent than Washington. Listen, man, I feel for Washington. I really do. And I would have been incredibly impressed if Kalen DeBoer said, no, I'm good. I like it where I'm at. Chris Peterson, Diesel, said that for a lot of years, you know? Like, and then when he finally did move, he stayed in the Pacific Northwest. He went from Boise State to Washington, right? That's when he finally did make the move. But he continued to say to everybody, no, I'm good. I'm good. I like it where I'm at. So anyway, folks, Dabo not going to Alabama. We told you he wasn't going to be at Alabama. Gosh, Diesel, how much I wouldn't love to have Brad Crawford on the show right now, because it was Brad Crawford who was exclaiming over the last 48 hours, it makes the most sense for Dabo, makes the most sense for Alabama. Dabo's a finalist. If he continued to say, if Alabama calls, Dabo won't say no. Whatever, man. Like, whatever. This was not the fit. This was not what he was going to do. Guys, I have long said that I feel if Dabo goes anywhere, it's going to be to the NFL. All right? I have always felt that. And it would be for the reasons that he's already stated, relative to his dissatisfaction with the direction in college football, to embrace an entirely new challenge. I didn't see Alabama. In Dabo's world, that's a lateral move. And I'll add this one more point to you, okay? Clemson has now missed the college football playoff, Diesel, 3 years in a row, 21, 22, and 23. I believe that if they had maintained their level, Dabo would be more likely to go now, because I do believe he'd have a feeling, well, I've kind of maybe topped out here. What else can I do here? But I kind of think the fire burns within him from guys like Tyler and Spartanburg, and from those doubting whether, hey, man, can your old school ways still work? I think he may leave to Alabama if Clemson kind of hasn't taken a step back. I think he doesn't want to leave Clemson like this, because Clemson's not in a good place right now. They're in a decent place. They're not in a great place right now. Let's be honest. I think the fact that Clemson took a step back kind of has added more fuel to the fire for him to stay, to get things back humming again, because they haven't been humming. They've been sputtering the last few years. Just being as honest with you as I can possibly be. 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. Again, 844-326-3663. Coming up next on the show. Guys, we've got a system, but what would be the very best one? That's next. My name is Mark Ryan. He is Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Afternoon Sports Talk.
It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. on this Friday. Excited to have you guys with us. Always feel that about you. Want to also let you know a couple of programming notes here. Couple programming notes for you. Tomorrow, right here on the Fan Upstate at 1:30 p.m., we're going to have coverage for you of Furman against East Tennessee State basketball. Prior to that, you will hear me on CBS Sports Radio right here on the Fan Upstate from noon until 1:30. That's actually a 5-hour show, noon to 5. But East Tennessee State coverage will pick up at 1:30. Good to see the guys in purple get their first conference dub of the year over the Citadel, 82-68 on Wednesday. Diesel, it was a rough stretch, man. I mean, this Furman lost to Anderson. Okay, like Anderson. Like the Anderson right down the road here, Anderson. UNC Greensboro and Chattanooga, before getting back on the right side of things, they just needed to get healthy. Needed to get healthy in the absolute worst way. So I want to get to this. We, my friends, have a system. We've got a system in both college football and the NFL. All right. And here is the system. In the NFL, 14 teams make the playoffs. It's been that way for a few years. In college football, 4 teams make the playoffs, and it's now going to 12. Those are the respective systems. But what would be the best system? Have you guys thought about this? Have you guys considered what the best system might in fact be? I'd love to know what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind. Before I show you mine and you show me yours, let's see what you guys are saying on the text line thus far today. Texter says, as Diesel alluded to, yeah, dude from South Dakota coaching Alabama surely will go wrong. Bad hire. Mongo says, Dabo to Washington confirmed. That's not nice, Mongo. That's not nice. Do not do that to the nice Clemson fans right here in the upstate. They don't like it when you do things like that.
Mongo, you're such a tater homer.
That's right. Texter says, Mark, I turned down the Bama job. Just couldn't take the pay increase. Couldn't take it. Texter says, maybe it's Michigan resetting the market right now. Maybe Michigan is guilty as charged. Texter calls it the Jimmy Sexton effect, super agent in college football. Texter says, I'm not sure Kalen DeBoer is going to be able to stop some of Bama's top talent from exploring the portal. I'm not sure he's going to be able to recruit at the Alabama level. The offense is legit, but this doesn't feel like the right hire for Alabama. I did hear an interesting take, Diesel, about this change, and I think his last name is Austin, and he was going into how he feels like Alabama is going to have to up their booster contributions after this because he believes Alabama's gotten the Nick Saban discount for years. And here's what he meant by that. He said, you go to Alabama, Alabama doesn't have to pay the same as everyone else is paying because Nick Saban has more first-round picks than losses. Nick Saban has 44 first-round picks since he's been at Alabama, only 29 losses. And so you don't have to pay the same amount because you go to Alabama, you're going to be competing for the national championship. You go to Alabama, you got a great shot to play in the National Football League. Now that Nick Saban is no longer in the fold, maybe they've got to pay more. All of those certainties, that massive investment in your future has gone by the wayside. I was also reading a sentiment that, perhaps coaches are not going to be weary of stepping into Nick Saban's shoes because Nick Saban was, in fact, who they were afraid of. And if Nick Saban is no longer there, well, there's no reason to fear them anymore. And maybe that's why Alabama doesn't get some of the guys they talked to. Maybe that's why they didn't get Dan Lanning. They didn't get Mike Norvell. Oh, okay, Nick Saban's not there. I don't need to go to Alabama then. I don't. That was the guy we were trying to beat, Nick Saban. I don't know that we need to do that anymore. Texter says, Mark, I agree with what you just said about Dabo not wanting to leave Clemson in a place like it is now. If he leaves now, Clemson crumbles. So says Johnny Carrots. Johnny, you're in my thoughts, brother. You're in my thoughts. Great to have you with us on the show today. Texter says, it's nice not hearing Harbaugh rumors for a change. Amen. Amen to that. As we stated, I felt bad for this, by the way, guys. And if I could just mention one thing that I think is really challenging right now in sports media. There was a Clemson sports media entity that has a paid site that had a scoop that, Dabo had a conversation with Alabama yesterday and it didn't advance far at all, and that, Dabo was not going to be going to Alabama. And on the bottom of their article, it says, "Do not share this page. Sharing of this page will institute copyright infringement." And then how did I see it, Diesel? Because I don't pay for their paid service, right? Everyone shared it. Everyone screenshotted that page. Everyone sent out that page. They're trying to get subscribers. That sucks. I feel for them. But here's what really sucks. Let's say for a moment that they come out with that scoop, okay? And this has happened to me before. It happened to me before with Jordan Birch. Remember the South Carolina defensive tackle? I got a scoop that if his letter of intent was not into South Carolina on Thursday, then Clemson had a great shot to get him. Well, he sent in his letter of intent on Thursday. And I had so many Gamecock fans saying, I told you. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, if the letter of intent comes in on Thursday, he's good. If it doesn't come in on Thursday, it's open season. Okay? Like, there is hemming and hawing going on in the Jordan Birch family right now. And that hemming and hawing continued with him ending up in Oregon. But let's say for a moment that this Clemson media entity has this scoop on Dabo, and it's right. Okay? Dabo spoke to Alabama yesterday. Conversation didn't get very far. Do not expect Dabo Swinney to become the next Alabama head coach. Let's say that was accurate. Happened yesterday. If there is an about face there, or Alabama offers a concession to Dabo because they didn't get other guys and they need to get Dabo now, if that happens, what do you think happens to that media entity? See what I'm saying? Oh, we're never going to listen to you again. But no, they were right in real time. This is a fluid situation. You guys know what that means, right? Likewise, Diesel, I have on my shoulders this year that what are people going to be saying about me if Clemson misses the tournament and they keep Brad Brownell? See what I'm saying? Whoa! What, dude, all I can do is tell you what was told to me.
Yeah, you have to be, you somehow have to be right in perpetuity, even though the reality is a fluid situation.
Yeah. And I don't know how you can do that.
You may have been right at the time. It may have been what you were told at the time. But that doesn't mean that won't change later on down the road.
Man, when you're in a coaching search, you live in a very different world 24 hours in a 24-hour time period. Like literally everything changes, man. Every single thing changes. All right, so guys, back to the task at hand here. Best college football system, what would it be? For me, it's this simple. And I know this is not happening. I get it, okay? But allow me to live in my world of fantasy just for a minute. This is a world of fantasy that the kids can attend, okay? My best college football playoff system is a 4-team playoff, but with a group of 5 team that gets in as the 5 seed, plays the 4 seed the week before the rest of the playoff begins for the right to get into the playoff. Okay? So you got the best group of 5 that plays the 4 seed. This year, the best group of 5, SMU Liberty, plays Alabama. Good luck in order to get into the college football playoff. Whoever wins that game is then the 4 seed in the actual college football playoff. You don't need to expand it, and you keep the value of the regular season, and you're giving the little guy, you're giving the group of 5 a shot. Why do you need to expand to 12 to give the little guy a shot? 4-team playoff, best group of 5 is the 5 seed, 4 plays the 5, okay? Right around the time that like the Outback Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, some of those new Christmas Eve bowl games are going on. That's when that game happens. A week later, the winner advances to the college football playoff. Brilliant. It's amazing. right? Like, why do we need anything other than that? Then I have contracts and scholarships written to be read. They end at the conclusion of the postseason. So you don't have coaches leaving. You do not have players leaving. Otherwise, your scholarship is null and void, and you're having to pay them back. That's what you got to do. All right? That's my idea for the optimal college football playoff. Okay? Now, again, I'll ask you, what is your optimal idea? What would be your ace in the hole idea? Diesel, you got a favorite idea for a postseason? That's the best one I've come up with because it doesn't expand things any further, maintaining the integrity of the regular season while also giving the group of five a shot. Like it?
I mean, I love anything that gives the group of five a shot, but I mean, you're going to hear a cacophony, big word for the day, a cacophony of people saying, well, why should the best team in the group of five, who is, where does the best group of five team finish most years in the rankings? 15-ish?
Yeah.
Why should the number 15 team get in over the number 4 team? That's what people are going to say. Just to boil it down to a very simple thing. Why should the 15th best team get in over the 4th best team or the 5th best team or wherever you decide to cut this off?
Let me answer that real
Sure.
quick. Because the 15th best team is a matter of opinion.
Sure.
Whereas their record means, like Florida State, they have earned inclusion in this. And I would argue that your team should have been one of the best 4.
Yeah. So, and it's funny, you've got to sort of flip-flopping arguments here. People will say, well, what about strength of schedule? They didn't play as strong a schedule as the number 4 team did. They didn't play an SEC schedule. They didn't play a Big Ten schedule. They played an American schedule, or they played a Sun Belt schedule, or they played a Conference USA schedule.
And I would say, Diesel, get over yourselves. I'm giving the big guy 4 spots. I'm giving the little guy 1 spot.
This is an argument I've been making for years. I'm glad you're finally coming around to this. You're finally coming around.
I like the plan. The big schools get 4 spots.
Yep.
The little school gets 1 spot. 4 plays 5 for the right to get into the playoff. Okay? That way everybody's got a seat at the table and you maintain the integrity of the regular season, which is not what's going to happen right now.
Sure.
You know,
it's all anecdotal. I mean, we saw the graphic that I sent you earlier this week that said the last 3 times a defending FCS champion team has played a team that played in a New Year's 6 game the year before. They won. It was North Dakota State once. It was App State once, and I forget who the 3rd team was now off the top of my head. But 3 times the best team in the FCS beat a team coming off of a New Year's 6 game. So the point is, the best teams in the FCS can easily beat the best teams in the Power 5, and I think that's also true of the Group of 5, the elite teams. And there's usually 2 or 3 of them that are right there in that conversation as being elite. The best Group of 5s can absolutely beat the best Power 5s. I think the percentage of times that they are going to win that game isn't great. I mean, it's certainly not going to be 50-50. If you're asking for it to be 50-50, you're asking way too much because there's a massive recruiting discrepancy, a massive funding discrepancy, facilities, all those things, right? But I think given any Saturday on the field, the best team in the Group of 5 could beat the 4th or 5th best team in the Power 5.
I hope that's still the case, Diesel. I hope it still is.
The sad thing is we'll never find out because the argument, the hypothetical argument of it'll never happen will always win over, well, let's talk about it on the field. Let's prove it on the field. The hypothetical, so-and-so got blown out. Now it negates having them in there at all. We shouldn't have them in there at all because this one team one time got blown out.
The problem is, Diesel, it's becoming let's settle it on the field, and the Group of 5 is bringing a knife to a gunfight. I mean, that's essentially what it's becoming. You know, remember all the games UCF won? Who did UCF beat again? Auburn. Right? It's like, does that happen today? Does that happen now in the NIL transfer portal era? as we're seeing the rate of Group of Five wins over the Power Five.
I'd sure love to find out, but most people don't want us to find out.
Yeah, I hear you.
They don't want to find out.
Texter says, Mark, your idea. What about Georgia and FSU this year? That's why expansion is needed, not just for the little guy. Look, man, you've already heard me say, okay, because I have to accept now quantity over quality to prevent Florida State from getting screwed again. Because I couldn't trust a bunch of people in a room, a bunch of gray tops in the room to do the right thing. You've already heard me say that. I'm creating the perfect system here, okay? The perfect system. There's no argument for Georgia. Georgia lost. They lost. When you lose the right to argue. Texter says, Mark, I was the one who texted you yesterday. You said Dabo had officially declined. I have connections. Seriously. You never tell your contacts. You know that. Texter, I'm not saying that you don't have connections. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I can't rely on you telling me that. I can't rely on that. But look, I'm glad that you have connections, man. Like I'm happy that you know people.
We don't know who you or your connections are.
Right. So,
literally anyone can text this show and say, I have connections with people higher up than you know. Here's what they're telling me.
So please don't be offended. Okay. Please don't be offended that I can't just accept what you're saying blindly. Can't do it. But I appreciate that. I'm glad that you had 24 hours less stress than many other Clemson fans did. All right. So that is the best college football system. Now it's time for the National Football League. And that is next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Brent Beaird joining us in the next segment. He's covered Alabama his entire life. Is there a more perfect guest for the next segment than Brent Beaird? Your texts, your calls, all welcome on the show as well. And, of course, you can give us a call on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone at 844-326-3663. 1 hour from now, Diesel, what's going to happen? 1 hour.
We have special guest host Grant in Five Forks on the show. He says he's ready to go. He told me the other day, he goes, I know exactly what I'm going to talk about, and I'm ready.
He's texted into the show today that it's going to be about health for college football, what's best for college football. I've just got this feeling that Grant in Five Forks doesn't give five forks about what's actually going on here today. No, Grant, we look forward to having you on, buddy. We look forward to having you on. By the way, try saying that I just said 3 times fast without actually accidentally saying the wrong word. Try. It's not easy. Not easy. Okay, so I shared with you my best college football playoff system, which is 4-team playoff. A 5th team, the best group of 5, plays the 4 seed 1 week before the playoff. The winner of that game gets into the college football playoff. But how about the best system for the NFL? Diesel, here is the problem in the National Football League, okay? Do you know, Diesel, home teams win in the NFL 53% of the time. But when teams have buys in the playoffs, they win 75% of the time. Henceforth, the buy is too powerful. The buy gives them too much. The buy enables them to say bye-bye to their opposition. I don't like the bye. Now, a 7-team conference is better than a 6-team conference in the playoffs because then you only have one team with a bye, not two. But in the end, guys, it's not great. It's not great. Of the 62 teams that reached the Super Bowl since 1990, 49 of the 62 received a bye through wild card round. 79% of the teams that received a bye made it to a Super Bowl. Okay? Well, Mark Ryan, that's because those teams are better. That's part of it. But the rest is also a major part of it. A major issue here. Okay? That's a major problem, man. A big-time problem. Do you know that 79% of conference winners, conference champions, had a bye? Only 21% played in the wild card round. Okay? 71% of Super Bowl winners had a bye. It's too much of an advantage. So here's what I'm going to do. When the NFL had 12 teams that made the playoff out of 32 teams, 38% of the league made the playoff. That was a good number. It felt like a reward. Now they have the same number of teams, 32 teams, but now 14 teams make the playoffs. That's 44%. You're beginning to trend a little bit into NBA category where more than half of the league makes the playoff. So anyway, you guys already know that I want to get rid of the bye. So here is my solution. Expand to 40 teams from 32 to 40. Well, Mark Ryan, that is a major leap. Not really. Why are they playing all these games in Europe? To eventually add an NFL Europe division. That's 4 of them. Berlin, London, Paris, and Rome. Now, when you talk about expanding in the NHL, when you talk about expanding in Major League Soccer or expanding in the NBA, you have a legitimate beef if you say it's going to water down the product. The talent level isn't going to be as good. Does anyone think if you added 4 more teams in the States, that the talent level wouldn't be as good? Are you kidding me? You're kidding me, right? I mean, there's supreme talent all over the United States of America. So I'm going to give a team back to Oakland. I'm going to give a team back to St. Louis. I'm going to give a team back to San Diego, which means a whale's hoo-ha. And I'm going to give a team to Salt Lake City. Okay? Utah Jazz, Salt Lake City. I now have a 40-team NFL. Okay? I have a 40-team NFL. And now I am going to have 8 playoff teams in each conference. 20 teams in each conference. 8 out of 20 make the playoffs. And 40% of my league gets in. I'm right in the middle of the 38 to 44% that they want. But the best part about this is I no longer have any stupid buys anymore. Everybody plays every single round. 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. The NFL doesn't want to go from 7 teams in the playoffs in each conference to 4. They've seen the value of all these teams feeling like they have a shot, even though they don't really. But they've seen the value of all these teams believing they have a shot. I'm telling you, the bye sucks. The bye is way too much of an advantage. I mean, we've seen teams in college football. What's it like to play a team after a bye versus the regular season versus without a bye? Now imagine you're at the end of the year, you're exhausted, okay? It's the whole rest versus rust argument, but this ain't Major League Baseball. This ain't the Atlanta Braves who got used to playing every single day. These teams need a rest like nobody's business. And it's too much of an advantage. Your advantage is you play at home and you play the 8th seed. 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. That's what I'm going to do. All right? Now, there was somebody who did a study on this, okay? And they looked at 3 seeds. Because remember, we used to have the 1 and 2 seeds got a bye. And in 13 cases, the 3 seed was actually better than the 1 or the 2 seed. Okay? They were good enough to get a bye, but didn't have the tiebreakers to get it. None of those 13 3 seeds made it to the Super Bowl. None of them did. And they were considered better, but they lost a tiebreaker to the 1 or 2 seeds. Okay? None of them did. Home teams in the wild card round that we have this coming weekend have won just 48% of the time. Home teams in the divisional round win 75% of the time. What's the difference? They get a break. That's the difference. My friends, I don't know what that MARC RYAN guy is saying, but he sure does make a hell of a lot of sense, doesn't he? Tell me if you agree. 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show. I'm getting rid of the buys. I'm adding an NFL Europe division. I'm adding 4 more teams in the States. I'm going to get to an even 40 because I can do that without watering down the product, and I have no more bye weeks in the playoffs. I'm MARC RYAN, and I approve this message. We've got Brent Beaird coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, MARC RYAN and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, MARC RYAN and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us, joined right now by the most perfect guest for what is going on surrounding us in college football. Every single time I refresh the page, there's a different news. Alabama focusing on Kalen DeBoer. Alabama negotiating with Kalen DeBoer. Now, DeBoer agrees to be next Bama coach. Washington's Kalen DeBoer, front page of ESPN.com, who guided the Huskies to a spot in the college football playoff national championship game this past season, has agreed to a deal to become the next head coach at Alabama, sources told ESPN's Pete Thamel today. Joining us right now to discuss this fast and furious week, Brent Beaird, Heisman Trophy voter. Brent, your initial reaction to getting really the coach that has become the apple of everyone's eye, apparently the guy that Michigan wanted if Harbaugh was to leave, right? But they don't have that information yet. And for me, I never understood why Dan Lanning was the first guy in line here. Kalen DeBoer beat him twice with less resources, with less blue chip players, with less NIL. Kalen DeBoer should have been the top guy the whole time. Maybe he was. Your initial reaction, who did Alabama get, Brent?
Solid hire, very good football coach, has won on every level that he's ever been on. Now, admittedly, there are no, at least what we know now, there are no SEC ties here. and there may be more than we realize later on, but if you can coach, you can coach, and he's proven that. I think some of the interesting things here, credit certainly to Alabama in making this quick with Greg Byrne. It was in some ways an out-of-the-box hire for Alabama, but Byrne has done this before, i.e. Nate Oates, the basketball coach, and I think we know how successful that he has been. And again, there's no guarantees here, but it is a solid hire. Major football people who follow really, I think, appreciate who Kalen is and what he's done on every level. I think the interesting thing now is going to be, I understand he meets with his team later this afternoon, and people forget, being from Washington, you got a time difference here, so things are just going to be later than they are. What I'm going to be intrigued in is, number one, keeping the roster intact, and number two, his offensive coordinator, Grubb, is a guy that Nick Saban tried to hire last year for about $2 million, by the way, as an offensive coordinator. Now, he may be the replacement. We don't know that yet. But although this little trinket out that I dug up just for you is their director of, I believe it was player development. His last name, McElwain. Yes, that is the son of the former Florida football coach.
Brent, we saw the video. You may have seen it as well. Fans chanting anyone but Dabo outside of the stadium. We're hearing about fans who are upset that it's Kalen DeBoer, a guy who's won a frog's hair shy of 90% of his games as head coach. If it had been Deion Sanders, they would be mad because he doesn't have enough experience. Does it all come down to the lack of SEC ties, and who outside of Kirby Smart would have actually made this fan base happy?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, I was disappointed, frankly, in the reaction to Dabo, and I don't even know what that was about. That was basically that may have been students who had nothing better to do than to just come outside and somebody put them up into a frenzy. I just don't get that at all. Look, there are a lot of I can tell you this. There are a lot of Alabama people who would have welcomed Dabo back to Tuscaloosa. It didn't happen, but that's a really good point. I mean, look, when you've had the greatest coach there's ever been, you're not going to find the same guy, or at least you're not going to find the same guy immediately. So, I mean, the names looked at. There was some talk about the MARC RYANs of the Texans, but I don't think you're going to leave a successful, at least in his first year, NFL job when you're in the playoffs. Now, I could see them looking at Ryans a few years down the road. Lane Kiffin certainly was mentioned. They did have a lot of liking about Lanning. I'm not saying they actually offered him the job, but that was one of the guys that they looked at. So besides Greg Byrne right now, happiest person probably in the nation is super agent Jimmy Sexton, who's the agent for Nick Saban, and also Kalen DeBoer too. So I think Jimmy had a pretty good week. Would you say so?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Brent, to what degree did you get the sense that the direction of college football is responsible for Nick Saban stepping aside?
Well, that's certainly some of it. Now, he pretty well has said there are no health issues, and it wasn't. I can't help but think that NIL and the portal had something to do with it. I'm not saying it had a lot to do with it. And Saban said himself, I don't want to blame it on that. But I think a lot of what's going on, Mark, is what happened to Bobby Bowden and Coach Paul Bear Bryant is they both basically stayed a year or two too long. And the other problem that Saban was having was he was having difficulty hiring staff because the staff that he was calling were basically telling him, Coach, love you, would love to be there. But the problem is, I know you're only going to be there another year or two, maybe 3 at the most. And I just need more stability than that in my life. So don't think for a minute that was not going on. And I think that crystallized for him. See, the day he retired, he was on the SEC coaches teleconference that morning, and he was literally calling coaches the rest of the day before he stepped into that 4 o'clock meeting with the players. And he even admitted 5 minutes before the meeting that he really wasn't sure which way he was going. So something obviously really, I think, came into formation for him during that time that led to him going. So it was stunning. It wasn't as, shall we say, early or premature as people thought Bob Stoops was, but and it's going to be fascinating to see what Saban's going to be doing over the next few years. And my understanding is he also had a hand in this hire today too, and he's going to be involved with the university to some extent. Yes.
Brent, the first 2 years of the expanded 12-team playoff is set to be the 6+6 format. Now, there's a push to adjust that and change it to a 5+7 format. Obviously, this is because the Pac-12 is no more. My understanding, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, is that the decision to make the change has to be unanimous. So in your mind, will the group of 5 commissioners capitulate to maintain some semblance of access, or do you believe that they'll stand strong and try to force the 6+6?
That's a really good question that none of us have an answer to right now, but you're right. My understanding is that it's supposed to be unanimous. Now, what you also hear a little bit of is, and I don't know how quick this can be, I can't see it being very quick, but that the Pac-2, can we say that, that there may be some kind of additions at some point over the next few years, and I don't mean a 14-team conference type thing, but at least some kind of, I wouldn't even say it's a mini conference. It would be whatever conference, and having the length of teams that you would need in order to have a conference, that there may be some kind of a bit of a resurrection coming up, but that would probably be at this point years down the line. So I thought they would make some kind of decision. They met on the day of the national championship game, and basically what came of that was, we're going to look at it further. We're not going to take a vote at this time. But I would have thought that they would have gone with instead of the 6-6 and 5-7. But at this point, we will see.
Brent Beaird joining us here on the show, Heisman Trophy voter. Brent, can you give me 5 teams that you are most confident will be among the 12 in the college football playoff next season? I shared with my audience, Brent, that, remember the complaint 5 years ago was that it's Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson every year. Yeah. College football did a great job solving its own problem with that. And now you look at the 2 teams, Michigan and Washington, in the national championship game. No chance Washington is back. Very little chance without Jim Harbaugh that they're back in the national championship game. Problem seems to have solved itself, but who would you say are you most confident with for the 5?
Well, it's interesting you bring up Michigan. I talked to a Michigan media person about this last night and posed the question. I said, "What's Harbaugh going to do?" And he said, "Well, Harbaugh is just a strange duck, as we know, and he's got no doubt a lot of interest from these 7 openings from the NFL." But he also said in the same breath that there's a chance Harbaugh's coming back, signing a big deal. And if Harbaugh comes back, a decent amount of this team is leaving. Is going to stay. So that would certainly be interesting. I think Georgia, Bama. I'm going to say Ohio State. I'm going to say FSU. And right now, I would throw Ole Miss in there. I think there's a lot of excitement about where they could go in this. And if I misnumbered, let me know. But I don't like Southern Cal because they just don't have a defense either. And I'm just wondering, Quinn Ewers is coming back. I'll throw Texas in there too. And again, that's I really want to kind of put Clemson in there, but and I know I'm going beyond what you asked me to, but you kind of see the dilemma here right now as we look at next year.
Brent, Shane Beamer makes it through what calendar year as head coach of South Carolina?
I still think, Diesel, that he got some equity. Now, a lot of that may be gone, but I think he got some equity early on from beating his rivals. So I'm gonna give him probably. I would say he would. I mean, obviously he's going to get this year, and I would say that'd be 24. I think if they are able to get to a bowl game, that would be 25. I would say probably at this point with the equity he got early on, 26 or 27.
Wow, that's a long rope. That's a long rope. Diesel said yesterday he doesn't think Beamer gets to 25. So that's,
and he may not.
Yeah, that's something else. So piggybacking on that, Brent, is it Billy Napier that enters 2024 with the hottest seat in the SEC? If not Billy, then whom?
It's got to be, frankly. Now, look, I give them some credit. They've had a good week. Now they've got some guys like from Tulane. They've got some guys looking at them from Liberty. And one of the interesting dialogues we've had here among Florida fans is they don't like that. These are small teams. I told them you can't go with that because you're getting some good players from teams that you may not know that much about, but they're still good players. But with all that said, Mark, there's no question. He certainly is going to get this coming year, but after that, there are really just no guarantees. I've heard a little bit about that he will have 4 years. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think, I had this conversation today too, I think he's got to be, I think they've got to be 7-5 or 8-4 in order for that to happen. And you know what the schedule looks like. It's brutal. But look, here's the thing with this. And we all understand what I'm saying here. If you're a fan of a team, and at the end of the year, and this is not qualifying anything, but you'll get it. If your team looks like they've made improvement and they look better, that's going to help him tremendously. Now, I still think that a lot of this is going to be due to the success of of what a special teams coordinator could do, what an offensive coordinator can do. Those are things that he really needs. But yes, to answer your question, I would say he and Sam Pittman in Arkansas would be the hottest seats going into next year. Yes.
Brent Beaird joining us here on Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Brent, great stuff as always, my friends. Really appreciate catching up with you. Last thing before we let you go, Brent, Mike Norvell. How close did that get in terms of your understanding, or was DeBoer always number one?
I think he was always number one. Well, I'll put it this way. I think he was either one or two, frankly. Now, obviously, Lanning was in there, but again, as I said, did they actually make an offer? That we may never know that at this point. Now, Norvell, I certainly think they had conversation. Now, did that conversation lead to an offer? We don't know that either. I mean, obviously, Mike did real well and came out real well with that. And it was a good day for them. Yesterday wasn't a good day with the NCAA sanctions because of the portal and NIL situation. And obviously, folks haven't heard he signed it, or he's been given a deal for $10 million per year. So he certainly capitalized, and he deserved it. They won a conference championship and arguably should have been in the playoffs. But I mean, Diesel and Mark, he was in the conversation, but I don't know if they really got to the here's an offer part.
Have you ever, Brent, in your life, and this is a rhetorical question, but have you ever in your life more felt like there is no offseason to college football, more so than now? I mean, we're supposed to be done. You know, this is supposed to be rest time, Brent. I mean, this has been the craziest week in our history.
It really has.
It's been crazy. It's been crazy. Brent, have an awesome weekend, my friend. We appreciate you so much.
You too, Mark. Diesel, thanks, guys.
All right, take care. Brent Beaird, Heisman Trophy voter. He's covered Atlanta. He's covered Alabama his entire life, with a scoop on the move for one Kalen DeBoer heading to Alabama. How do you guys feel about that? Your reaction, welcome as well. 71307 on the text line. Up next, the NFL playoff matchups coming up this weekend. We will size them up on the sizzle scale from most to least compelling. And that's next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. To go see Clemson play Akron, and you're on the field with the players after the game. No red tape, right? No line between the players and you. We try to do the same thing on Offsides, right? No line. Let you behind the curtain, show you how it is, how we do what we do every single day to the best of our ability. Grant and Five Forks earned it. Joe D earned his prize. E. Thoughty earned his prize. Dan B. earned his prize as our first, second, and third place winners in the Upset Pick Challenge as well. So, my friends, what do you say we hit you with a little sizzle scale for the upcoming games in the NFL playoffs this weekend? Sizzle scale style, okay? 1 through 10 on the sizzle scale. How much are each of these matchups sizzling for you? So what I thought I would do is I would start from scale of 1 to 10, least sizzling matchup, to most sizzling matchup. How do you feel about that? Good idea? Bad idea? Too late now. Here we go. So Dallas, let's see here. Philadelphia, Tampa Bay up first. Sizzle scale for me on this one is a 2, scale of 1 to 10. I think everybody knows that there is not a Super Bowl contender playing in this game. I think everybody knows that this is very likely to be the last game that either of these two teams wins for the year. Philadelphia is favored by 3 points in this game. I do like Philadelphia to win. I do think that the one good thing about this game is it could be competitive. The Football Power Index from ESPN says Philadelphia is a 57.3% chance to win. So what you could have is a competitive game, but you don't have the elements, you don't have the weather, you don't have true contenders. It feels like in the playoffs this year, this feels like a little bit the battle of mid, and I can't believe I'm saying that about Philadelphia. Next up on the sizzle scale, the fifth most interesting game of the weekend, Buffalo against Pittsburgh for me. Sizzle score 1 through 10. I am putting it down as a 3. 3 sizzle scale 1 through 10. Am I right or am I right or am I right? Right. Why? Well, I think it's the most lopsided playoff matchup we have. Buffalo, for much of the week, had a double-digit spread for a playoff game. Now, the spread on this game is listed as 9.5 points. And it's somewhat surprising when you consider that there's only one game separating these teams in the standings, right? 11-6 for Buffalo, 10-7 for Pittsburgh. But you just don't feel like the Steelers have the horsepower to contend in this game, do you? You know, it's like, how are they going to get to the 20 or the 28 points that they're going to need to win this game? The Football Power Index says that Buffalo is a 76.6% chance to win in this game. I just don't think it's competitive. I think this is beatdown central. And I think this is one of those games that you're going to be turning off. This game is going to turn you off, my friends. It is not going to turn you on. Mason Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, is not going to have much for Josh Allen and company in Buffalo. One thing they can do, they're used to the weather. You know, the weather is not going to affect them the way it would affect some other teams. But I don't see this as being an overly competitive game. What do you guys come out? Agree or disagree? On the sizzle scale, am I right to say this game is second to last? What do you say we move up on the sizzle scale? So Philadelphia, Tampa Bay was a 2. Buffalo, Pittsburgh, scale of 1 to 10. Sizzle, a 3. Number 4, game number 4, Cleveland against Houston. I give this game a sizzle score of 6.5. 6.5 on the sizzle meter. It's good, right? It's good, pretty solid. I think this is an unbelievable weekend of games for the NFL. Like, I can't believe some of the storylines that fell into their lap. Houston from out of the playoffs, less than 50-50 shot to make it a week ago. Now not only in, but division winner. A spread that opened with Cleveland favored by 3 is now Cleveland by just 1.5 points. And we're really anxious to see whether the league's best defense can go to Houston, and will that offense travel against one of the most hot quarterbacks, one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. And then you have the level of competitiveness that we're supposed to see in this game. How close is this game supposed to be? Well, how about this? The Football Power Index says Cleveland 50.5% chance to win, Houston 49.5% chance to win. Imagine the joy for a moment that Houston Texans fans are feeling. Season begins in September, no chance to do anything this year. Makes the playoffs, wins the division. You got almost a 50-50 shot to advance from 14 all the way down to the final 8. If you're a Texans fan, you're saying, man, why not us? Why not now? I think there's a lot of reasons why this game, for me anyway, is quite compelling. On to game number 3 on the sizzle scale. We've had a 2, a 3, and a 6.5 thus far on the sizzle scale. This one for me is a 7. Detroit and the Los Angeles Rams. Oh, man. You remember that 2-point conversion? The ref screwed over the Lions against the Cowboys. Remember that? That resulted in Detroit getting perhaps one of the most difficult draws in the NFL for the postseason. The LA Rams at one point were 3-6. They finished 10-7. The Rams won 7 of their final 8 games. 7 of their last 8 games. Rams won. And so not only that, but then you've got Matt Stafford returning to Detroit. You know, played there forever, didn't accomplish much. Now Detroit is suddenly solid, suddenly good. To me, this game, there's a lot to be excited about in this one. And the outcome is totally up in the air. The outcome is in doubt. Detroit, now the line is down to -3, favored by just 3 points in this game. And you've got a football power index saying the Lions 53.9% chance to win versus the Rams 46.1%. Guys, it's a hell of a game, man. I mean, this is a hell of a game. Old versus new, Hall of Famer potentially from your team. What do you guys think? Do you think Matt Stafford makes the Hall of Fame? I think this is incredible. Like, I think this is going to be an incredible game. Leaning Detroit right now. Leaning Detroit, but anybody's guess. Anybody's guess as to what happens here. 7 out of 8. Rams were 3-6. And consider where they are today. All right. So we got 2 more games left on the sizzle scale. 1 to 10 score. Kansas City, Miami, I have as an 8.5 on the sizzle scale. 8.5. Why? Have you guys heard about the conditions for this game? I mean, I'm only half joking when I say this. Miami may not get out of here alive. May not get out of here alive. Have you guys seen this, heard about this? What's going on today with this game?
And people have called me stupid in the past for saying every NFL stadium needs the ability to close the roof.
Andy Slater, check this out, Diesel, says Kansas City will have extremely dangerous temps on Saturday night. Cover all extremities, including your head and face. The National Weather Service says Dolphins-Chiefs kickoff in Kansas City. You want to guess, Diesel?
Temperature?
Yeah, what's the temperature?
The actual temperature, I'm going to say it's 8. And it's going to feel like 2.
The actual temperature is -1. It's going to feel like -23.
And people say that I'm stupid when I say that every stadium in the NFL needs a closable roof.
But Diesel, okay, for me, you don't think I'm going to be entertained by that?
No, it's going to be terrible. You're going to watch it for 2 seconds and be like, oh, man, that weather sucks. Isn't it nice to be here drinking a cup of cocoa while this is on? And then the game's going to start. You're going to say, I can't see anything. I'm out.
I don't think so. I think I'm going to marvel. I think I'm going to enjoy watching millionaires have to brave that environment. You know, extremely dangerous temperatures. And again, I'd remind you that Gamecock fans do not show up when it's 50 degrees and raining. Okay? Do you think the Kansas City Chiefs fans will show up better than you in negative degrees, negative temperatures?
We need to go back and find that game, the game that we were making fun of them for not showing up to when it was
Florida. It was Florida.
Yeah, it was 53 degrees and raining. Because I remember the rhyme we wrote, forever to thee, unless the temperature is below 53. And we need to compare the number of fans who show up to this Kansas City game to that game.
We do. We most certainly do. And so that sizzle score is an 8.5. I think Miami just might be too beat up to compete in this game. I think that might be what's going on. Kansas City's favored by 4. Ton of injuries. Raheem Mostert, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. All these guys are banged up, and then you're throwing them in this kind of temperature. But the ESPN Football Power Index says Chiefs just a 52.6% chance to win. And then tops on the sizzle meter. Dallas against Green Bay, sizzle score of a 9. 9 sizzle score. Why? Well, for starters, you've got the two biggest brands in the NFL. Two of the biggest brands in the NFL. The rating for this is going to be insane. Two of the most massive fan bases. But then you have this. Similar to the LA Rams, who have just been on fire the second half of the season, so too have the Green Bay Packers. And, you know, you look at this team, you see the spread, Dallas -7. You consider what Green Bay has been through this year. You guys realize that at one point this year, Green Bay was 2-5. A 2-5 team is in the playoffs. They were 2-5. They were 3-6. They finished the year 7-3. Okay, so this is a team that flipped a switch that is playing much, much better. The ESPN Football Power Index says that the Cowboys right now have a 73.6% chance of winning this game. But, you have the historic choking that the Cowboys always do. Have they graduated past that? Are they willing to take the next step? Because you know as well as I do, if that's a close game in the third quarter, there's going to be some really tight sphincters in Dallas. You know, my old partner, Booger McFarland, once said Peyton Manning was so tight in the playoffs, you couldn't fit a pin in his ass with a hammer. You wonder if some of that's going to be experienced in Dallas on Sunday. All right. I am no longer the host of this show. Grant and Five Forks is. When we come back here on Offsides, we are the Fan Upstate.
Ryan.
Not the nerd.
Ryan? This feels weird.
Hit the button.
This is Offsides with
a special guest, Brent in Five Forks.
Just the way I like it.
This is
The Fan
Upstate.
Hello, Upstate. My name is Grant, and I'm very happy to be with you guys today. I know a little bit earlier Mark was talking about what the best case scenario for the college football playoff would be. Well, that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. But let me preface this by saying, Mark, you're not going to like this college football take. So, ladies and gentlemen, since I won a contest pertaining to college football, I think it's only appropriate that we talk more about that sport today. It's been about 4 days since Michigan claimed their second national title since 1948. Yeah, that's right. Their second since 1948, because no one in their right mind outside of the state of Michigan thinks the 97 team would have beaten Nebraska. But anyway, I digress. I think we can all agree that college football has undergone some pretty significant changes over the last few years with the addition of NIL and the transfer portal. But I'm going to tell you today that this is just a drop in the bucket for what's to come. The era of the Power 5 football conferences is coming to an end. This has been in the works for quite some time, but the Florida State lawsuit against the ACC is going to exacerbate this change. College football will move to a Power 2 conference format, with the Big Ten and the SEC leading the way. Long gone will be the regional rivalries. Long gone will be the conference rivalries. And we will even say goodbye to the conference championships. College football is going to move to a very similar model to that of the NFL, with two conferences similar to the AFC and the NFC. It'll move away from the NCAA, become an independent football league, and be funded in part by the NFL and the major television networks. All right, so who's in? Okay, so going back to 1985, almost 40 years ago, only 20 teams have won a national title. Furthermore, only 12 teams have won 2 or more national titles. Of the teams that have won those titles over the last almost 40 years, the ACC has only had 3 champions: Florida State, Miami, and Clemson. Every other school has won a national title during this time span is already a member of either the SEC or the Big Ten. Currently, there are 133 FBS schools, which means that only 15% of those schools have won a national title. Teams like Iowa State, Kansas, Utah State have no chance at winning a championship under the current format. So why not create a new conference for the second-tier teams and let them compete for a crown? It's my opinion that within the next 4 to 6 years, we will see the Power 2 break away. And I also believe that there's going to be about 48 teams in this new league, with 24 in the Big Ten and 24 in the SEC. So what about Clemson? Well, I believe the lawsuit FSU filed will be the first shoe to drop, and that Florida State will be cleared to join the Big Ten as early as 2025. Then Clemson, Miami, and North Carolina will be Big Ten bound shortly thereafter. And then the SEC will take some of the ACC leftovers, probably both the Virginia teams, North Carolina State, and maybe Louisville. Also keep in mind that some of these current teams that are in the Big Ten and the SEC are not going to make it to this new Power 2 format. Now, I have no idea if this will come to fruition, but I do know that college football is setting record viewership numbers and bringing in record profits. And in the world of the haves and the have-nots, the haves need to break away from the NCAA and fulfill the true potential of major college football. And guys, I know the last guest was talking about Nick Saban as well, and how, this is the time he retired. Well, I have no doubt that Nick Saban saw the writing on the wall, and he has no desire to continue to coach in the new college football landscape. So, Mark, Diesel, what do you think? Do you think my foresight has any chance of becoming reality?
Well, here's what I think. That's what
Outstanding.
That's what I think. That's what I think, man. That is the best one of these we've ever had. Grant and 5 forks. He actually does give 5 forks with the takes that he has today. Grant, absolutely outstanding job. Grant, you're right. I don't like it, but somewhat I upset the Gamecock fans and the Florida fans when I said this. But I said, look, man, everyone's saying the group of 5 can't compete. What about schools like Florida and South Carolina? They're not competing either. Are we now rapidly approaching a time frame where Florida and South Carolina and those mid-level teams are going to need their own trophy too? So we got a trophy for the big dogs, a trophy for Florida and South Carolina, and a trophy for the group of 5 because no one can compete with the Alabamas of the world anymore?
I don't think so, guys. It all comes down to money. And with the new NIL collectives and these schools raising more money than what they ever had, teams like Florida and South Carolina can compete. They can. Florida has proven it in the past. They've won national titles. Those guys, they absolutely can compete if they get their house in order. So I don't think so. And I absolutely think Florida and South Carolina are going to be part of this new Power 2 conferences. But teams like Vanderbilt, Northwestern, along those lines, they have no shot. And I don't think that they're going to be around for the new Power 2.
Well, Grant, when you said that there were teams who weren't going to be around for it, we all knew that you meant Vanderbilt. The question becomes, and you said it yourself, it's all about money. How many years worth of media payouts do you think the Big Ten and the SEC would have to pay the Vanderbilts and the Northwesterns to go away? You can't just boot them to the curb or they'll sue you for a ton of revenue lost. How much do you have to offer them? Is it 5 years worth of media payout? Is it 10 years worth of media payout? And then you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars just to go away. That's what makes booting anyone out of a conference such a sticky proposition. It's easy to add. It's hard to send people packing.
You're absolutely right. But one thing that I believe is really going to happen is that the NFL is going to get involved in this new model. And we all know the NFL prints money. So whether it is $100 million or $200 million over the course of 10 or 15 years, honestly, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what these new television contracts are going to offer these schools. And you know what? The Vanderbilts and the Northwesterns of the world probably won't like it, but they'll take the money and they'll move on and they'll be able to compete in that second tier level and maybe even win a championship for their school, which they have absolutely no chance to do in this new Power 2 model.
Grant in Five Forks, best one of these we've ever done. I'm going to be honest with you. We had some a few years ago that were so bad that Diesel and I discussed not doing them anymore. Like my boss said to me, hey, man, maybe. I said, no. There's some really good dudes out there that are going to slay this. And so like every time we do this, Grant, I'm sticking my neck out a little bit because my boss doesn't like bad programming. Diesel doesn't like bad programming. Brother, you've got it. You've got the it factor. What a job well done, sir, by you. And thank you, too, for making it a good decision by me to keep doing this. You made me look good, Grant. Your awesome performance made me look good. Great job, brother. We absolutely would not hesitate to have you win one of these again.
Hey, well, guys, thank you so much. And the last thing I'll say is, in 2024, do hard things. That's it.
Do hard things. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sure. You can never grow in comfort.
Yeah.
You have to do hard things. And I tell you, I was very nervous to come on here and do this, but that was my New Year's resolution this year, to do hard things. And I was just very thankful that I was able to win the contest and be able to do this today.
I am so damn proud of you. You slayed the beast, brother. Slay the beast. You absolutely slayed it. We are proud of you, brother. And we're honored to have you as an offsider. Thanks so much for making us part of your afternoon. And hi to the fam for me and have a great weekend, okay?
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
You got it. All right. Grant in Five Forks.
Whoo!
Well,
It's a tight race between Grant and Five Forks and Mongo for the best guest host we've ever had.
That's the best.
We've had some that get deer in the headlights look. And Grant, man, you crushed it. You did a fantastic job.
I'm going to tell you a funny story about a guy I put on the air for the first time. Okay, when we come back, and we got the top 5 at 5 to share with you next as well. Here on Offsides, we are the Fan Upstate. Happy Friday, my friends. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, still blown away by Grant and I don't give a Five Forks. Had to say, just blown away. Had a point, made a point, was strong in his conviction, gave you details as to the why, backed up his argument with data, strong opinions, colorful commentary. Grant and Five Forks, just standing applause. Standing applause for you, Grant. Awesome. Incredible job. Texter says, Mark, that was awesome. I just flipped the radio on and couldn't turn it off because I was genuinely interested in what he was saying. I didn't realize till it was done that this was the contest winner. I thought you had some ESPN guy on. Nice work, Grant. So, Grant, from now on, sign all your letters, correspondence with Grant, ESPN guy. Awesome job. Awesome job, brother. So I have a quick story for you. Okay. This was first radio show I ever had. And I bought the show, right? So like I bought an hour of time. How do you do that? I'll tell you. I was paying for 1 hour a week on the weekend in Orlando, Florida. I was paying $250 a week, which was $1,000 a month. This was in 2005, so it was 19 years ago. Would be more expensive than that now, right? But I was paying for that. And then it's not like I could just afford to eat $1,000 a month. I had inventory on the show that I could sell. And through that, I was able to sell and actually make a profit on the show. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to afford to keep spending $1,000 a month for a 1 hour a week show. So it was my show. It was called, I think, the Saturday Sports Section was the name of it. And I named it that because my dad always put the sports section at my breakfast place at the table. And I'd wake up, I'd sleep in, and the sports page would be there. And it always signaled the start of like a fun weekend. So the Saturday Sports Section's name of the show. I had rotating co-hosts. No, the station is not helping me with this, right? Like I am essentially an advertiser. I am paying the station for airtime. It's called a brokered program. So I had this one dude on, and I said, look, man, I wasn't comfortable yet hosting shows by myself. Obviously, I just started doing it. And I asked a guy to come on with me. And the music is coming on to start the show. And I can tell, brother, he is nervous. Like his legs are shaking. His foot is tapping, like he's having all of these weird anxiety type behaviors. And his name was Craig. And I go, Craig, awesome to have you with us, man. Thanks for being with us here on the Saturday Sports Section. And I kid you not, he looks at me and he goes, thanks for being here. That's what came out of his mouth. And I looked at him and I laughed and I go, no problem, Craig. I'll be here next week, the week after that, and the week after that. He combined the phrases, thanks for having me on, with it's great to be here. And what came out of his shaking pie hole was, thanks for being here. Never forgotten that. Don't make fun of him, Mark Ryan. That's not nice. He was nervous. Hey, listen, we all got to be able to laugh at ourselves, okay? I mean, I've never forgot. Thanks for being here. Anyway, but I digest. Let us carry on, shall we, with the top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the upstate, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
Alabama has their man, Kalen DeBoer, the guy that we predicted would get the job, has landed the gig one day after we did that. I don't know, guys. I feel like you guys should really, speak on my behalf to your friends and family in the upstate and just let them know how right Mark Ryan has been lately. I know you guys like to bust my balls about like, hey, Mark, in the upset pick challenge, you're not doing great. And you pick this team, I'm going to pick the other team. I know you guys like to hit me with that. But I want you to take note that I had Michigan over Alabama. I had also Washington over Texas. Then I had Michigan over Washington in the national championship game. And now I've successfully called Kalen DeBoer to Alabama with no inside sources, just reading the tea leaves that are out there. earlier today, and this was hilarious to me, but the KJR is a radio station in Seattle. And KJR earlier today put out this announcement because they have Kalen DeBoer on their station every single Friday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. Here was the announcement. Husky fans, we know you were looking forward to a visit with Coach DeBoer this morning. Please understand that Coach DeBoer and UW Athletics are continuing to work towards a future we can all be excited about. At this time, Coach will not be joining us this morning, but we will reschedule our interview soon. Hashtag Purple Rain, UW. I retweeted that with a little emoji because there is only one reason why he wouldn't be at his regularly scheduled radio interview, right? Only one reason. That is unless everything is going to hell in a handbasket at UW. And it was. So Alabama's getting a phenomenal coach. I think discussions about geography are overrated. What I care about is, can you coach or can you not coach? Okay? Nick Saban wasn't from Alabama, wasn't from the Southeast at all. Okay? At all. He's from West Virginia. Brian Kelly isn't from the SEC. How's that working out thus far? You don't have to be from the place. You have to be able to connect to young people. You have to be able to coach. Kalen DeBoer has now reached the top of the mountaintop, and he's done so in record time. 4 years ago right now, Kalen DeBoer had never hosted FBS football. Think about that. I have been here 5 years. 4 years ago, start of the pandemic, Kalen DeBoer had never coached FBS college football. Now he's the coach at Alabama, and they got a damn good one. Look, it's unfair to say, will he come close to matching what Nick Saban did, because no one comes close to that. But it takes an alpha who isn't afraid of the past to be willing to accept the challenge of the future. And I think Kalen DeBoer has done that. They did a great job. And I don't think Alabama's going to take the step back that many of you are forecasting. Next up.
4.
At number 4. Guys, today on the show, we have had a conversation about systems. What would the best systems be in terms of postseason play? And I'll share with you mine if you share with me yours. Okay? I'll share that with you. For me, in college football, the very best system would be a 4-team playoff +1. 4 + 1. The +1 would be a group of 5 team. The best group of 5 plays the 4 seed for the right to get into the college football playoff. The game would be held 1 week before the playoff kicked off. You could run it as the, as the marquee game, the headliner, amidst other bowl games. That would be around December 23rd, December 24th. This year, I don't know that the matchup would have been great. Would have been SMU or Liberty against Alabama, right? At the same time, you're giving access to everybody, and you're not expanding the playoffs so much that you're sacrificing the integrity of the regular season. What would my best NFL system be? Okay, I hate bye weeks. Bye weeks are way too much of an advantage to those who have them, and they're way too, channeling my inner Will Pelagic, they're way too penal for the teams that don't have them. And I can illustrate this. Do you know that teams that play home games in the wild card round win the home games just 48% of the time? You know what the percentage chance of winning a home game when you host the divisional round is, the teams that have byes? 75% of the time. It's just far too big of an advantage. I don't want anybody to have a bye week. So here's what we do. 8 playoff teams per conference. But because I don't want 50% of the teams to make the playoffs, I'm going to add 8 teams. I'm going to add an NFL Europe division that the NFL is considering. Berlin, London, Paris, and Rome are going to get teams. I'm going to give a franchise back to Oakland, back to St. Louis, back to San Diego, and to Salt Lake City. Don't tell me the product's going to be watered down. There's way too many talented football players in this country for the product to be watered down.
They have teased and they have played a game in Mexico City. Any interest in giving a team to Mexico City?
I thought about it, Diesel. I thought about it. I don't have a good reason why not. I just like the other ones better. I don't know, man. It's weird. I felt better about giving. I considered Toronto more strongly than I considered Mexico City. And I got to examine why that is. I don't know. Are you open to Mexico City?
I would be just because having seen a little bit of international soccer played in Mexico City, the fans for soccer there are ravenous, and I think they would very quickly catch on with American football. Yeah. And I think it would be a heck of an environment, a unique environment that no other team in the NFL has.
They'd be in contention. You look up any list for NFL expansion, Mexico City is on it. But I'm saying expand to 40 teams, 8 playoff teams. You know, when the NFL had 6 playoff teams per conference a few years ago, 38% of the league made the playoffs. Now with 7 playoff teams per conference, 44% get in. My solution splits the difference. 40% of the league gets in. Expand the league to 40 teams. Have an NFL Europe division, the one sport where this could actually work because you play just 1 game a week. Next up,
3,
Bill Belichick with an emotional goodbye to Patriots fans. After all of this time, he finally said goodbye. Here's what it sounded like.
You know, fans here are amazing. So many memories of the fans, the send-offs, the parades, the Sundays, you know, whatever the situations are, the letters of support, seeing the fans, away from here, at a gas station or a grocery store, or, where we just bump into them. Patriot fans here, and not just in New England, but they extend nationally and even internationally as I've traveled. It's amazing how far the arm reaches. We saw that this year in Germany. So appreciative of the fans for all the support they've given me, my family, and this football team. And it's with so many fond memories and thoughts that I think about the Patriots and I'll always be a Patriot. I look forward to coming back here, but at this time, we're gonna move on.
That's more words than we've gotten out of Bill Belichick in years.
And his voice was actually cracking there. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Like, is that real, genuine emotion from the emotionless? I was convinced that dude was the Grinch and had a heart 3 times too small, Diesel, this whole time. But guys, can we just admit this? Can we just admit that Bill Belichick was actually fired? I'm going to need you to explain something to me, Diesel. They said they had a mutual parting of ways, okay? When the boss decides that it's time for you to go, if that half of it is mutual, is it really mutual? Because he is the boss. He is deciding that you are no longer working there. What do you mean it's mutual? The boss has decided that you are not going to work there anymore. Fine. Mutual parting of the ways. Stop blowing smoke up our skirts. I already shared with this Seattle station did that today. Just like, hey, Kalen DeBoer is not going to be on today. We were just notified of this. Why? Your guess is as good as ours. We will await further notification. Why not just be honest with people? Don't blow smoke up our skirts. Robert Kraft didn't want Bill Belichick to coach the team anymore. The proof of that is, when did they hire their next head coach? Already. Gerard Mayo. He's already the coach. This was in the works for a long time. This wasn't mutual. This wasn't amicable. The boss decided he wasn't there anymore. That's it. Next up.
2.
Number 2. Dabo Swinney held a meeting with his team at 3:00 p.m. today. And a lot of Clemson fans were nervous. If you listen to me, I said no reason for that. I don't see Dabo Swinney going anywhere. You had the likes of Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports, really, in my opinion, kind of spewing nonsense that, hey, if Alabama calls, Dabo's going to say no. Well, guess what? According to good authority, Alabama did call. Dabo did have a conversation. The conversation wasn't very long. The conversation didn't go very deep. And that was that. Dabo is a Clemson lifer per Don Munson. In my opinion, Dabo is a Clemson lifer at the college level. I have always felt if Dabo was going to leave Clemson, it wouldn't be for another college. It'd be for the NFL. And it would be for reasons he's already stated relative to this dissatisfaction with the direction of college football and to embrace an entirely new challenge. I never saw Alabama. And then you had Brad Crawford saying, hey, man, look, it's the best fit for all parties. Who told you that? Dabo won't say no if Bama offers. Well, they called him. It wasn't a long call, allegedly.
Well, you can't tell him that in his mentions because remember, he doesn't read negative mentions.
That's right.
He told us that.
That's right.
Told us that on the air. He said, don't read your negative mentions.
So we hope you didn't have too much stress. I wonder, guys, if part of the reason Dabo was not more interested in the job was because Clemson has taken a step back the last few years. Maybe if Clemson had maintained its previous form, Dabo feels more comfortable accepting a new challenge. But there's no way Dabo was going to allow his Clemson legacy to end, in my opinion, with what we've seen the last 3 non-college football playoff seasons. And finally,
1.
At number 1, we've got a sizzle scale for you in the National Football League. 1 through 10, how much sizzle is in each of these games? Philadelphia versus Tampa Bay. Lowest on the sizzle scale for me. Sizzle meter, 2. Why? Because we know neither of these teams can win the Super Bowl. Buffalo versus Pittsburgh. Sizzle meter, 3. Why? Because it's the biggest, most lopsided matchup the playoffs offer. Cleveland versus Houston. Now, here's an interesting one. Sizzle scale of 1 to 10, 6.5. Why? Best defense, Cleveland, going on the road to one of the best rookie seasons the game has ever seen for C.J. Stroud. Man, I'll be real with you. I didn't get to see a lot of C.J. Stroud in live football this year outside of highlights. I was blown away by his accuracy and anticipation. Just his feel for when guys were going to be breaking open was that of a quarterback far beyond his years. I've got Houston winning this one. They've got virtually a coin flip chance to do so, and they're playing at home. Detroit and the Los Angeles Rams. Sizzle meter, 7. Why? Well, Los Angeles has won 7 of their last 8 games. Los Angeles is returning Matt Stafford to Detroit. Detroit won the NFC North for the first time ever. And that's going to be the most raucous atmosphere you see. By the way, Diesel, Detroit was smart enough to have a dome in Michigan. Okay? Sizzle scale, 7 for that one. Kansas City, Miami. Sizzle scale for me, 8.5. Why? Because it's a losable game for Kansas City. Okay? Because Miami has had an electric offense. Because Miami's got me and Diesel playing in the secondary at this point with all the injuries they have. Xavier Howard, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Mostert. But really the reason this game is an 8.5 on the sizzle scale is because the weather has been called dangerous. Folks, if I said to you, guess what the temp is going to be? The correct answer is there isn't one. -1. They not only have no degree, they have taken an additional degree away from 0. -1 degrees with a wind chill of -23. I'm curious if the NFL at this point could move the game. This is insane. It's a spectacle we'll all be talking about on Monday. And then Dallas, Green Bay, sizzle scale 9. 2 of the biggest brands, largest fan bases in the NFL, but it's more than that. It's more than the fact that the rating is going to be massive. It's that Dallas historically chokes. Green Bay is 7-3 over the last 10 games. Is another choke in store in the big, don't call me little D. And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate on every one. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is MARC Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. All right. Coming up next on the show, the natives in the upstate are getting restless, and we'll detail the why for you on the flip side here on the show that gives you both sides. Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate.
Guys, you guys were awesome again today. Madcraft, who else? Scrolling up, Dan B. You guys been chatting a lot over the last little bit. Dylan, Roger, all you guys who were in the stream today, man, thank y'all so much. And those of you who were lurking, who never type anything into the chat, we appreciate you being here too. But you know what? Tomorrow or Monday, why don't you say hello? Why don't you get in the comment section and say hello? Chat with some of the people who are here. They don't bite. I mean, I think Madcraft might, but I don't think anybody else does. So just do us a favor and jump in the comment section. And thank you so much for watching today.
What NFL pick are you most confident in this weekend? Most confident in? Let us know, guys. Have a great weekend. And we will see you guys on Monday.